welcome to Fireside Chats with Mats. So I have an interesting one today, actually. I was watching a video. It was a compilation of like three cops being recorded and like found out for malpractice or whatever, for bad policing, thuggery, whatever. I tend to find that most cops seem to be above average people in terms of like seeming to have their shit together and stuff. Certainly above the average these days, but at the same time, I don't want to let down the truth by, or I don't want to obscure things by not acknowledging that it's a monopoly on force. But and not only a monopoly on force, but a monopoly on force that presents itself in a certain way and seems to be in so many ways not what it presents itself to be. Clearly, even the average person would likely say like the government's corrupt. I remember hearing my dad say, "Well, everyone knows the government's corrupt," or like saying it as if like he was saying, "Oh, well, everyone knows." Like, and I was old enough. I was at an age where like it was shocking to me to hear someone say the government's corrupt, like matter of factly, because I was like, well, if it's corrupt enough that like you know about it, not that my dad, not to put my dad down, but in terms of like if you're a citizen of the country and it like it's openly corrupt enough for people to see, and for you to say this in a tone that seems to be like, well, of course it's corrupt, then wouldn't somebody like essentially like how could they be corrupt out in the open? Like like how could they be corrupt out in the open and not have bad things happen to them, and not have the system like take them down for being corrupt? And of course it's just they are corrupt. Like that's what it is. I could give you just show me any given news broadcast and I'll point out like 7 things reeking of corruption. Like literally any news broadcast. But mainly because what they're going to be talking about is just like involved in all these corrupt machinations. And so it's like, well, this is that doing that, this is that doing that. And don't forget that all of this is a group of people saying that they have the right to destroy you literally, and that you have the right to do what they say at all times for your entire life, and they'll take your money from every paycheck that you ever make. Like these people, like it's I don't want to let the cops off easy here because they are thugs. Like in a certain sense, they are certainly like you could say like they're like knights in shining armor or something, and I could see that sense. I don't want to say that there's no sense of that, but really like what is a knight except someone who has been told by a king that they have the right to be a knight? And it's like, oh, so somebody else gave you the right to come over and screw with me, and that person has it so that if I do anything other than follow your exact commands always for the rest of my life, then I'm gonna have like 10 more of you show up. Like it's like, and I just mean like literally like in some of these videos, these people were just like literally one of them, a guy was standing on his porch. He wasn't outside. The cops like came and knocked on his door to ask him about some kind of argument that it seemed like his son had with somebody after he was on like a gas powered like bicycle or something in the neighborhood. And so, but for some reason they called they were talking, maybe they were talking to the father about that incident, I don't know, but they asked the father, like, could you come down and talk to us? And the father's like, no, that's okay. And he like walked back into his house, and they like literally jumped in and started like grabbing him and pulling him out of his house. And they put all these fucking charges on him for like like obstructing justice and stuff when they actually went into his house without a warrant. And it's like, and those kinds of charges were actually placed. I think they ended up being dropped, but it's like, really, like that's what this system is going to do. That someone's going to violate the fucking constitution, and in so doing they're going to make it look like the person they violated it against obstructed justice, and that's going to actually be a real court case in the world. Like, really, that shit? Like, so this is horrific stuff. And I was watching some of that stuff. Like, that one was the most, seemed to me to be maybe the most memorable or charged one. And of course the son, like, he came out of the house like with his little camera, and he was taking a video of the quote unquote investigation where these people were just dragging his father away with like brute force, who did like nothing. Who just walked back into his house, and they grabbed him and they were dragging him away and going to charge him and ruin his whole life over them, maybe them trying to cover their ass for breaking the Constitution, or by going into his house without a warrant, and also, not to mention, without any reasonable cause, like that I saw anyway. The guy was just fucking standing there, he was wearing like fucking shorts, and looked like he just, got up off the couch after like eating some chips and watching football, and here are the cops like pulling him out of his fucking house for like what reason? No reason at all. And they're gonna charge him with obstructing justice. Like, it's a horrific world that we live in. It's a horrific system. But I'm still not a fan of liars. I'm still not a fan of lying, and I think it's equally horrific when someone who isn't a member of the police force uses the might of the government against somebody at all, but more so in favor of a lie. And this one seems to be perhaps a lie that was believed. And it's interesting because I looked for the footage of this. I looked for the so-called body cam footage of this guy named, of course, Matt McKinley would be all over this. His name was David Dukes. It was 2021, and he was accused of stomping on a black man's head. And his name was David Dukes, and he was a police officer in 2021. After David Duke became like the famous neo-Nazi or whatever he is, I think he seems to me to be one of those guys where the media literally like invents a celebrity. Like, they invented him as a celebrity to be the guy that they called the spooky like neo-Nazi guy. And it's like, it seems like I don't think anyone in the world would have known his name unless until the media said, "Oh, here's the big guy, here's the big bad guy, it's Bowser, it's King Koopa over there," like, I don't know much about this guy at all, but it seems to me like it's possible that the media made him into a celebrity. But in any case, this guy is named David Dukes, Duke plural, and so of course, and I don't know if this is all a setup and it was perhaps meant to be something that took the nation by storm, except it was just so bullshit that nobody, something like this, nobody gave it the time of day, but like on a national scale, I mean. But it seems to have really fucked up this guy's life, because I was looking for the body cam footage of him supposedly stomping on the black man's head, because the picture that I saw from the YouTube video I was watching about that particular incident, I clicked onto a second video, and this one was just one story, not three, of cops, a cop supposedly like being unjust in his operations. And it was just, it seemed like the image I saw, it didn't seem like his foot was near the guy's head. It seemed like the guy was like getting onto the ground, and this guy was being gung-ho. He was being an asshole. He was, it seemed like he was making a lot more out of the situation too. So it seemed like sort of he and the other guy were playing the same game. He was trying to make a lot out of the situation to like arrest this other guy, and then this other guy was trying to make a lot out of the situation to say, he slammed my head against the ground when he arrested me, or when he was doing whatever. He slammed my head against the ground. It's like, the picture I saw, it looked like his foot was near your back, and from the footage plus the picture or whatever. But I was looking for the footage again. In fact, I think I might go back and watch that original video, because I was looking for the footage like in news articles I found about it online, And it seemed like every time I tried to click their footage of it, either the video wouldn't work, maybe just due to the website not being particularly good for like a local news station or whatever, or the video would just be somebody like, literally there was a Young Turks, it said TYT, I think that's the Young Turks, there was a Young Turks video about this particular situation, and I scrolled through the video like to see the footage, and literally it was just the announcer and then a quote about what the guy supposedly did, and then the announcer for the Young Turks, and then the quote, and the announcer and the quote. No footage of like the guy supposedly stomping on the head, even though in the fucking headlines it says police officer arrested over body cam footage of him stomping on a black man's head or something. And I was like, but I've been looking at these videos, and either the video won't open, or the video I open, and there was another like commentary video. These guys weren't Young Turks people. They were just a couple of guys, and it like the video was titled that, or like it seemed to be related to it, but then it was just literally them like sitting there talking the whole time, and they didn't show any footage. And it's just like, so nobody's showing any footage of this supposed horrific event that they got footage of him stomping on this black man's head. And what I saw looked more like him overzealously, yes, and being a real prick, but in no way like assaultingly or anything. This guy basically getting down to the ground, like on, basically like arms outstretched above his head, feet, legs outstretched down, so he's like sort of facing down on the ground, and he's sort of like getting onto the ground, and the police officer is getting kind of fed up because he's like not listening to him. So he it seems like he basically just kind of like with a little bit of force, but not with a lot of force. Here's the thing, just sort of like a minorly firm force pushes down on this guy's, it looked like to me like it was him pushing down on the small of this guy's back, as the guy was like going towards the ground, getting down on all fours or whatever, pushing down on the small of his back with his foot. And like basically push, like, okay, essentially basically to say some like, yeah, don't fucking like stall getting down on the ground, just like go the rest of the way down. But the guy was almost all the way down, it seemed, to begin with, and it seemed like the guy's foot was not near the guy's fucking head. And it seemed like, from what I saw anyway, it seemed like it was, or it would have been, some kind of like just almost like a gently firm kind of push down on him, more like a dominance thing. And yes, indeed, like a dominance thing, indeed, like a my cock's bigger than yours is kind of police officer thing to do, but in no way the same as slamming this guy's forehead against the ground. And then this guy, I did see like footage of like a little footage of this guy whose forehead was supposedly slammed against the ground. And by the way, he's standing up for like the rest of the video, and like I don't see blood coming down his head, but I saw footage of him later, and he had this like big bandage all around his head, like fucking like Houdini or something. And it's like, and he's there saying like, I look in the mirror every day and I see the cut and a scar or whatever, and it reminds me of like what happened to me. And it's like, what happened to you? What happened to you was an asshole told you to get onto the ground, and then it seemed like he gently pushed on the small of your back with his foot so that you would get all the way on the ground. And then you instead turned around and loudly announced to the entire people, like in the whole situation as it was being recorded on camera, then you started calling over and saying he slammed your head against the ground.